Good afternoon. It is Wednesday, January 20th. Woo! Oh, yeah. No, it's
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
It's Tuesday, January 20th.
Tuesday, January 20th. And we're happy to have you. We're going to one big happy family.
Great. And I think I need to use this for here.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
Hear it better.
yeah. Makes me a little crazy because it sounds so loud when I talk into the microphone to me. But
You're like on repeat.
I know I can see that on the screen too, that it's
It'll be better
when you share something, sure. So yeah, this movie. So One Big Happy Family. My sister just told me it's my sister in Miami that it's on the schedule for the Miami Jewish Film Festival next week. So I thought that was interesting. I didn't realize that was happening, but it's a pretty new movie. It was just made this past year, 2025. It's a really small independent production. I don't know what its budget was, but it was about as low budget as a movie can be made. And uh, the director has never directed anything else. I don't know if he'll get another chance to direct anything else. I have a feeling that he and the producer, who is also the writer and the star of the movie, know each other. And I got that feeling about sort of everybody in the cast, with maybe the possible exception of Linda Lavin, are all friends. And, so they just got together and made this movie that she wrote. And it's also the character is worried in the movie, as you notice, about being an actress of a certain age and not getting parts in Hollywood as a result. And I think that probably is a very lived feeling of this actress. So there is her name. She is indeed Jewish. Her name was not Lisa Brenner when she was born. It was Lisa Dawn Goldstein. So when the character in the movie says that she didn't look Jewish as a kid and changed her name for Hollywood purposes, that describes Lisa Brenner. She was born in Long Island, where this movie is supposed to be taking place, although there are a couple of shots where you can see the outdoors and it does not look like Long Island. And at the end, if you looked in the credits, it was actually made in Utah. There are a lot of states that give a lot of tax breaks for movie companies. And so if you're a small budget movie in particular and not working at not working at a big studio, the chances that you actually made your movie in Los Angeles are slim and none. So, and they couldn't afford to go to Long Island, which would be an expensive place to shoot. So you end up with a movie about Long Island made in Utah. Right? So Lisa Brenner, as I mentioned, born Long Island. She has she got her start really in soap operas. She was in a one called Another World. I don't know if that one still is on TV or not, but she had a recurring role on Another World, but she had a ton of smaller movies. You may remember a movie called The Patriot with Mel Gibson. She's in that. She's, I think, the female lead in that. But other than that, she hasn't really been in a lot. She's had, she's been in every like TV show in one episode, right? She's been that kind of actress over the years. So working steadily, making a living, I think, as an actress, but not really breaking out. The director Matt Stone, I mentioned this is his first movie as a director. He's been a cinematographer. He's actually gotten some Emmy nominations, primarily for his work on what do you call those reality shows like Survivor and things like that. So he's been behind the camera for that. He did. I'm not sure exactly what his role is with the TV series Abbott Elementary, but Abbott Elementary received a Peabody Award a couple of years ago. And so he received a Peabody Award for being part of the crew that makes Abbott Elementary. So my guess is that he was behind the camera there, but he may have directed some episodes of the TV series as well. He doesn't even have, there's this database, right? The IMDb, the International Movie Database. If you want to look somebody up, you can look them up. You can find out all kinds of things about him. He barely has an entry in the IMDb. So, and I can't say that there's anything particularly distinguishing about this movie from a directorial point of view. I mean, you don't look at it and say, "Wow, look at the composition of that shot" or something. I watched um, I watched one of the movies that I think will probably be nominated for Best Picture the other night, One Battle After Another.
Oh,
If you guys have seen that. Yeah, you look at that and say, wow, that's a director. That guy, composes a shot in the camera. I mean, beautiful, amazing. Um, but not so much in this movie. But of course, it's not really that kind of movie either. It's a small character movie. You're not going to get a lot of sweeping vistas. And particularly if you're trying to make Utah look like Long Island, you can't really have too many long shots of the mountainous, background, right? It doesn't make sense. Um, but so not many people that you really recognize in this film, I don't think. The actor who plays her husband actually was a child actor. He was in the movie Hook, the Steven Spielberg version of Peter Pan. He was one of the Lost Boys way back when. But and that's why I get this sense that a lot of people in this cast are sort of they just happen to have been the folks who met each other on set of some TV series or another, playing guest stars for the day and things like that, and end up doing this together. So the one exception to that is Linda Lavin, right? So Linda Lavin is uh, well known, I think, as a TV actress, but really even better known for her work on Broadway. She was played a number of parts on Broadway, and in musicals and in dramas. She was on TV. She was actually in the first season of the show Barney Miller. She actually plays a female detective in the first season, but then she left to do something else and came back to television for the lead in the TV series Alice, right, based on Martin Scorsese's movie Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore. And she did that for a number of years. Um, but her first Tony nomination was for a Neil Simon play, Last of the Red Hot Lovers. And she was in a lot of Neil Simon shows over the years, and particularly well known for originating the role of Kate in Broadway Bound, one of the trilogy of Neil Simon plays with the double B's, Biloxi Blues and Broadway Bound, and what was the third one? Something else with two B's in the title. But actually, that role, she won the Tony, she won the Drama Desk Award, she won every acting award there is in New York for that play. And even now, people talk about her, and that performance is legendary in Broadway circles.
Brighton Beach Memoirs.
Brighton Beach Memoirs, that was the third one. I got Biloxi Blues. Brighton Beach Memoirs is the one I couldn't remember. Yeah, there are three sort of semi-autobiographical works by Neil Simon about his life. So she was terrific in that. She got a Tony nomination for a revival of The Diary of Anne Frank on Broadway too. She played Mrs. Von Don in that, and she even played Mama Rose in Gypsy back in 1990. It was a reboot starring Tyne Daly as Mama Rosa when Tyne Daly left the kid. Remember Tyne Daly from Cagney and Lacey? When she left the cast, then Linda Lavin stepped in. So uh, so she had Emmy nominations for her work on TV. She won Golden Globe Awards for playing Alice. Um, this is her last film. She died. If you watched the end credits, you saw it was there was a dedication to her at the end. She had lung cancer even while filming. I think you can see some of it in the sense in the way the movie is made. I'm not sure how well she was during the making of the movie, but it really is her swan song in a sense, her last chance. And there's scenes early in the movie where sometimes you can just tell this stuff. Uh, a better director might somehow have made this work better, but there's scenes like early on when she's on the phone with her daughter, and so she's in one location and the daughter is in another. It seems very clear that she's on some kind of a stage alone, right? So the daughter is in a car and things are moving and mom is sitting at a table, right? I think it's partly concessions to her health, probably in this situation that they filmed it that way. Um, those are the people in the movie. The star Lisa Brenner wrote it as well and produced it, and so she's the one who really made this happen. And I'm very curious to hear your reactions online and here to the movie itself. But it begins with a credit that says, I believe I got it right, a somewhat true story. So, but it is largely based on her own story that she indeed did find out thing and through genetic testing that her father is not the person she thought was her father was not her biological father. It happens, right? I can tell you in my wife's family, my wife's sister did one of these DNA tests and discovered relatives that no one knew about because of affairs that some cousin had with somebody. And so at their last family reunion, they had a gentleman there who looked just like her cousin in every respect, except that he was black. So, they met actually in the hotel before the family reunion because they came down to the breakfast room and there was a guy setting up tables, so getting a bunch of seats together so the family could sit together. And only after talking for a while did they realize they were there for the same family reunion. So that's how my wife met her black cousin. So these things happen and they maybe are happening more than we realize. Vanessa told me she read a book that has virtually the same story.
By Danny Shapiro, The Inheritance. We read it in book group.
Yeah.
Susan Wellis, do you remember reading that book? Oh, wait, let's think.
What book, Vanessa?
Yeah,
The Inheritance. Danny,
I remember.
I don't remember that,
someone else
Yes,
said.
I remember it.
but
Oh,
but
Evan?
I wouldn't count on my memory for much these days.
Well, was that you, Evie, you piped up that you remember it?
Yes,
Yeah,
I remember reading it and thinking about it during the film. Actually, I said thought this sounded so familiar. Parts of it.
right. Yeah. So, I was joking with Vanessa that maybe he's one of her half brothers, but who knows?
no connection.
No connection. Okay.
So
But anyway, so these stories are happening. I mean, this was, I guess, one of the, and maybe you know this better, but in the early days before real artificial insemination, I mean, this idea of mixing sperm together maybe was an early part of kind of fertility, some of the kinds of fertility treatment that people did. Right. So maybe it's not so uncommon. Do you know anything about it? Yeah. So. Um, but so not an uncommon story, I guess. But of course, the other part of this story is the bat mitzvah theme of the story, and really that we keep seeing the countdown all through the movie to the day of the actual bat mitzvah, and flashbacks to the mom's bat mitzvah where she froze when it was time to give her Devar Torah, to give her speech, and her mom came up and made an embarrassing speech, which certainly would mortify a lot of 13-year-old girls, I think. So I think that Linda Lavin does a great job in her last movie. She makes this character more than just a cliche of a Jewish mother. I think this movie may not be the most original movie I've ever seen, but that doesn't mean I wasn't reaching for the Kleenex every now and then. I don't know about you guys, but it got me pretty emotional here and there. So there are a lot of things that I really like about it. And I liked pairing it with the movie we saw last week as well, right? So A Real Pain, partly in the sense that it's about family, of course. It's about family legacy. And to some extent, there is the kind of search for roots that we see in A Real Pain as well. So I think they make an interesting companion piece. So you can't really compare them without comparing the scripts, making an unfavorable comparison for One Big Happy Family. I think the script for A Real Pain is pretty brilliant, and pretty good at the way it gets character across and things like that. And this movie is much more broad, much more like a regular sitcom episode than it is like a real piece of literary work. But that doesn't mean it isn't effective, right? Even those half-hour sitcoms can be effective. So I think it, in its own way, it does what it sets out to do and does it pretty well. And it brings home the relationship between the mother and the daughter, and brings out this idea of that family is more than just genetics, right? So, which is an important idea, and certainly something to think about as artificial insemination and things like that gets more and more prevalent in society. That it's worth thinking about what that all means, right? I do, as someone who stands up in front of people and talks all the time, this fear of public speaking is, but I talk with children about it all the time, right? And have kids who are truly afraid, of giving a Devar Torah at their B'nai Mitzvah. We've had some examples of kids who needed a bucket up on stage just in case they were going to throw up before they spoke. We go through these things pretty regularly around here, about how to get through it, right? And there are a lot of people in the world for making a speech is the worst possible thing, right? It's someone told me once that he would rather be at a funeral, he would rather be in the box than giving the eulogy, which is, yeah, that's pretty averse to speaking, right? So I get that exists for people. That's but it is quite paralyzing for some folks. So the movie proceeds in its kind of episodic way as we go forward, as she starts to question who she is, the world, and why she is the way she is, and thinks that some of this may come from what turns out to be this genetic test that shows that she is 51% Northern European, right? So the fellow who plays her half brother, who there's a couple of them, but the one who's the main one is actually a stand-up comedian. So I don't think I even wrote down his name, to be honest, but anyway, Bobby in the movie. So the one who says he's her grandfather when they first connect, and then realizes that, well, grandfather or half brother, right? It could be one or the other. So
Bingo.
you know, the actress who plays her sister does stand-up comedy and records music and things like that. And by the way, if you stuck with it long enough to hear the Yoni song at the end in the credits, that was also written by our writer producer Lisa Brenner. She wrote the song as well. So I am curious about what you guys thought. So any thoughts on the film? I see Sue's got her hand up online. So
Uh, okay, Rabbi. First of all, I thought the title was kind of ironic because it didn't seem like one big happy family to me at all. It seemed to me like one big mixed up family. And as far as Linda Lavin, yes, she did a fabulous job with that role, but the daughter just kept giving in to her. And I think most of us, if we had a Budinsky mother like that, we would just shut her up as fast as we could. I mean, I know from of course, my mother was never like anything like that, and I certainly try not to interfere with my children's lives in that kind of a way. But how she kept saying to her mother, "I love you, I love you." Yes, she loved her mother, but for God's sakes,
yeah.
I, I don't know. It didn't strike me the way it did you, Rabbi. I mean, I appreciate your feelings about it, but it would have never gotten a tear out of me.
Yeah, no, not even let's see, but some of the flashbacks with the dad, or when she put the Jewish star on her daughter's neck. I think that's the one
Yes,
where I
there were touching
so,
moments. There
yeah,
were.
those were the moments that got me, I think. Right. So, but I hear you and I appreciate it. Appreciate the point of view.
I think what I took away from it is that we're gonna have many different family configurations. We already do now, and our membership, everything reflects, it just says spouse, it doesn't say, husband and wife, all of that. And I did think at the end they were happy and all these people were there, and it was just another way to look at family.
Yeah, I think it whether it's deliberately trying to make that larger point, maybe, and maybe that's where the title comes from, is right there. They are not, for most of the movie, as Susan points out, one big happy family. It seems like an ironic title, through most of the movie, right? Then perhaps in the final scene you get something different. I mean, well, it really starts with the mother going to the hospital, I think, which I love the reason for. She's having an allergic reaction to the tattoo that she got. It's not her heart, it's an allergic reaction. There's a lot of stuff about allergies in this movie, by the way, right? If you're paying close attention, there's a line once they figure out this genetic stuff, says, I can even eat gluten, right? Her sister says, at one point. So, all these things that are sort of passed down genetically as Jewish genetic issues, right, are less so for them because they've got 50% of some other DNA. It's kind of interesting. But maybe by the end, you can talk about one big happy family is not meant to be just even about her own family, but about the nation, the world in general, right? As these kinds of technologies become more commonplace, and of course, there's adoption and other kinds of things as well. But all of these things lead us to come to a different kind of questions about family, right? So. Did I hear someone online?
Mute yourself.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Can you
Yeah.
see me? I don't know if you
Yes.
can see me,
I can
Bradley.
see, I can see you and hear you, Linda.
Okay. I, my first comment when Steve and I were watching it, because we got mixed emotions on it, my first comment was, and I know when people say that it was too Jewish. I don't know of anybody that talks like Linda Lavin was speaking.
Mhm.
I mean, they're sitting in the car and they're using a lot of Yiddish expressions, and that is not that common anymore.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe they wanted to prove something, but I haven't heard anybody call somebody mamala in years. I have not heard that. And what was the other one? You know, for every issue, there was a Jewish expression, which I understand, but I don't know who outside of the Jewish community is going to watch this program and understand what was going on.
Yeah. Yeah, this is an issue we have with a lot of these movies, right, Linda? I mean, when we look at them, we say, so who in their right mind thought they were going to make money making this movie, right? You know, who's buying a ticket? Now it helps if you keep the budget really low, because you don't have to make that much when you do it. I do think some of these movies are made as a labor of love. Whether they always turn out great or not is beside the point in some ways. So I think there's some of that. Was saying Mamala, maybe this is what you were going to say, Gail, was Kamala?
No, he's talking to somebody else.
Right. They made a big deal out of that in the last presidential campaign, right, with Doug Emhoff, and they call her Mamala, right? So of course it helps if you have a name that rhymes with that, I guess. But you know, so I think Linda's not wrong that you don't hear it very often, but you know, we did hear it a fair amount a couple of years ago. I will say there is a sort of what year does this movie take place in?
I expect Starker. I
Yeah.
mean, certain things that I use all the time. Oh, real Starker, you know, like,
Yeah.
you know, they're strong. They could do this.
So
It was made in 2024.
the movie was released last year, but is it necessarily set in the, you know, in the present day? I mean, it does say it begins with Long Island 27 years ago, but that was her
Yeah.
bat mitzvah when she was younger, right? So 27, I'm sorry? Right. So she's turning 40, so 27 years ago was her bat mitzvah. And so um, if her bat mitzvah was in 1985, right? Because the movie comes out, you know, but okay, if you really want to parse this stuff out, some of it doesn't really make sense, right? And I think because Linda Lemon, when they visit, see, is the private investigator? Yeah, when they visit the private investigator, she talks about how she liked the Brooklyn Dodgers when they were in Brooklyn. You know, so when was that? Right, yeah, they left Brooklyn in 55 or 56, right? Right, so she has to, you know, which is fine for Linda Lavin, who was born in 1934. She probably does remember the Brooklyn Dodgers, but how old would she have had to have been when this girl was born to have her bat mitzvah, you know, 27 years ago, if it's said in the present moment, right? So.
Yeah, because that's
Yeah.
my mom's age, but I'm, you know, in my 60s, and my kids, you know, are in their 30s. So
Right.
my mom definitely remembers the Brooklyn Dodgers.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sperm donor was from mid-70s.
Uh-huh.
So it kind of that kind of fits with her bat mitzvah.
Right.
Being 85 or somewhere in there.
Okay. So, and makes the mother have to be, you know, 40, right, in that time, which is not impossible, but, you know, not terribly likely, right? So there's some things here that, you know, if you get really specific on these things, And so some of it, I think, Linda, coming back to the language and stuff like that, sounds like maybe things that people of Linda Lavin's generation say, especially if you're from Long Island, right? As compared to, the way we talk in the Midwest, right? It's a little different.
Abby has her hand up.
Yeah.
Abby.
Yeah, I certainly don't speak Yiddish, but I loved the interspersing of the Yiddish because I just remember hearing those expressions, maybe not from my own parents, but maybe from friends' parents. And there's something that you just can't translate, and there's something that kind of links the generations, like a memory of generations past. So I thought that was a wonderful addition, and I did have a lot of tears.
Yeah. Yeah, well, thank you. I mean, so again, I mean, the more Yiddish you put in a movie, the less tickets you're probably going to sell, right? I mean, I think that's one of those things, how will it play in Peoria, as they used to say, right? And yet that's been like sort of the premise of this whole series of films that we do, starting with the Jazz Singer in 1927. I mean, who decided that for the first talking movie, we're going to make this movie about the son of a cantor? Right? That's going to be a big hit. Okay. Did all right, right? And it did all right back in those days, of course, because most movie theaters were in cities. Jews were more represented in cities than in the countryside. It didn't matter how it would play in Peoria. Peoria didn't have a movie theater yet. Maybe they did, 1927, I don't know. But that wasn't the question. Is how's it going to do in New York was the question. And it did fine in New York. Right. But over the course of generations, we find these movies that are of Jewish interest and with Jewish characters. Mel Brooks, Woody Allen, there was a time when Mel Brooks, I mean, I just read this because we're talking about Mel Brooks next week in our new biography book club. But Mel Brooks was the number 4 box office attraction. Number 5 was Burt Reynolds. Right? So, yeah, Mel Brooks apparently sent him a note, to gloat about it. But it's hard to imagine, how some of these people made these movies thinking, oh, this is going to be a big success. And this movie is very small, and I don't know that it played in theaters, to be honest. I mentioned at the beginning, my sister says it's on the lineup for the Miami Jewish Film Festival next week. So they're recouping some of their investment that way, I think, on the film festival circuit. So got David here.
I think, one of the interesting
Oh,
things.
let me give you this so they can hear you.
When she first gets the phone call from Bobby and says we're related, and she has no interest at all. It's just it's first disbelief, but certainly not being interested. There's got to be a mistake. And then eventually, coming around, doing the second test, and coming around and saying, oh, it's not a mistake, and then trying to develop a connection with him, which was interesting thing. Initially, she completely shut him out and shut him off and wasn't even open to the possibility. I'm sure these things happen. My wife sent her DNA a long time ago on Ancestry, and after a couple of years, she got a notice that there was somebody who was closer than a first cousin, and it turned out to be a half brother that she didn't know about. She suspected, but she didn't know about. And the interesting thing was that the half brother, he didn't send his DNA in. His wife, he was a Chicago policeman, and his wife, who was a police detective, sent DNA in the entire family. And she was the one who made the contact that he's never wanted to know.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that, it happens both ways. It's, it doesn't necessarily lead to a reunion, big family reunion. The fact that it did here was a very nice positive thing. But also, I mean, all these kind of unusual characters that tattoo people and so forth.
Yeah, you never know. You never know who you're going to find, right? And we've kind of gotten used to our own families, and even if there are people in our families that we're incompatible with, we still love them because they're family, right? And, but so to add somebody else to that mix, right, who maybe you're incompatible with and you haven't grown up with, right? So the cultural thing isn't there for you is a complicated thing, right? Um, uh, so I've actually never done one. I'm pretty certain it's, 100% Ashkenazic Jewish, but you never know until you do it, I guess, right? But it's also my name, Serotta, some of you know, is a Russian word which means orphan. And so we can't trace my lineage back very far because we get to an orphan. But every now and then I get an email from somebody with the same last name who's looking for relatives, right? Who just, and this happened a lot during the early days of Facebook and things like that. Someone would just see the name in the profile and say, my last name's Serrata, and I don't have any living relatives. I wonder if we might be connected. We think about it for a bit and see if we could find a connection, but by and large, you go back a few generations and they're related to a different orphan, right? So we've kind of adopted a couple of them over the years because we like them, wish we were actually blood relatives, but we're not. But so it can happen that way as well. But genetically, I suppose I might find a connection to family that I don't even know, right? Because my great grandfather was Yisrael Serrata, which is basically like going through life with the name Jewish orphan. So we might find that we're related to somebody else, I suppose. Might be interesting. Maybe I'll do it. I don't know.
Will you?
I don't know. I think about it, but I haven't done it. But that for me would be the interesting thing. It's not, I don't expect to find, in this generation that I have half brothers and stuff like that I don't know about. But I might actually find, something in the family tree that we've never been able to do because we can't get past my great grandfather being an orphan, right? So there might be something out there that might be worth finding.
Evie, do you have another question?
Yeah, no, just a comment. I just recently heard that the Yiddish class at the Northfield Senior Center is very, very popular.
Yeah,
So I think that, there is interest in terms of our generation.
I think there, I think there's definitely interest in Yiddish around the country and around the world, actually. I mean, there are Yiddish classes going on in Poland and places like that. Um, if they were more readily available, there are some amazing Yiddish movies from the 1930s and 40s. And back in the days of video cassettes, I did a series on Yiddish film. Most of them aren't available for streaming. They're not even on DVD, a lot of them. It was brilliant. It was a brilliant part of the film industry in the 30s and 40s. And again, you talk about something being too Jewish. I mean, these were explicitly movies made for Jewish moviegoers. They were largely co-productions between the United States and Poland. And the movies would play in Poland and they would play here in New York primarily. So there were when I was a kid growing up in Miami, there was a Yiddish vaudeville theater in Miami Beach, right? So there was still a lot of Yiddish spoken a generation ago, but now it's about reclaiming it, let's say. So, but there's definitely interest, and the synagogue I worked at in Milwaukee, I showed those Yiddish films, and out of that came a Yiddish club with some folks who would get together every week and speak Yiddish to each other and try and remember what they had learned when they were kids. When I went to Israel for the first time in 1972, I went with my parents, and we met some cousins who I had never met. I mean, they lived in Israel, of course. and discovered that the only language that we had in common was my father and my cousin could speak to each other in Yiddish. And I didn't even know that my father could speak fluent Yiddish because he never spoke that to me, to any of us kids when we were little. But he spoke well enough to actually talk and communicate with my cousin. Yeah.
One of the late night comedy shows did something about PBS, because there were rumors that PBS was gone. The Corporation of Public Broadcasting shut down, but PBS is still going. And they're saying they were talking about some shows they have. He said one of them is Find Your Roots. It's where white people find out that they're black.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Sandy Kaminsky has her hand up.
Okay.
I remember the highlights of my mother's life was the night that she and three of my aunts would go to the Yiddish theater. I believe it was on Roosevelt Road someplace. And they would just have that wonderful night watching Yiddish films. My mother was born in the United States, but her mother never spoke a language but Yiddish. So that's what she learned as a child. And they just relished the Yiddish films in Chicago in those years. I would say that was the 40s, in the late 40s. And the name Molly Picon, comes back to me that they talked about her. And of course, Fanny Bryce.
Mhm. Yeah, well, especially Molly Picon, who even late in life was still appearing in the Yiddish vaudeville in Miami, but starred as a young woman in movies like Yiddle Mitten Fiddle, which in some ways is similar to the movie Yentl. And it's the story of a girl who dresses up like a boy and becomes a klezmer musician, Yiddle with a fiddle, right? And goes around. Yeah. So they may have seen
Rabbi?
movies in the 40s. The movies themselves were probably a little bit older. The movies, once certainly by 1939 and the start of the occupation of Poland, the Yiddish film industry essentially came apart. So I don't think there were many of those movies actually produced in the 1940s. So they were probably produced in the 30s, but they were still being shown, and there were a lot of them. So they were ones they hadn't seen yet, right? Most likely, or that they went back and saw again because they loved them so much. So
Rabbi,
yes.
they never taught us a word of Yiddish.
Mhm.
The little bit that I picked up was just by chance, but it was as if they didn't think we needed to know it. And then years later, when we made Aliyah, I regretted it so because we were living in a Merkaz Klita, and it was the years that the Russians were coming into Israel when they were able to get out of Russia. And a friend of mine, Carol, who was younger than me, knew Yiddish. She had learned it really well from her family. And she could mix with all these new Russian immigrants. It was a beautiful thing to watch.
Yeah.
And I really regretted it. I was jealous of her that I didn't know Yiddish and I couldn't help these people because they all needed help, a lot of help when they came in.
Absolutely. Yeah, I do think there was a generation of particularly of American Jews and Israeli Jews as well, right, who knew Yiddish, but it was much more important to speak Hebrew, certainly in Israel. In America, more important to speak English. So I think it was pretty deliberate on my father's part that not to teach us Yiddish, right? And I didn't really hear him speaking with his friends in America either. His mostly Jewish friends who he went to college with, I think they all probably could speak Yiddish, and none of them did, right? Even when they got together on their own, right? It was more important to become more American.
Right. And you know what else? The ones who came over later, they called him the grinner, the grinner. And that was really
Yeah,
looking down on them, that they didn't know English when they came to America. And you needed to know Yiddish to even mix with them.
right. Yeah, was the English translation of Der Grinner was the greenhorn, right?
Right.
They weren't Americans yet. They weren't, or as they said in New York, they weren't Yankees yet. So, um, yeah, so there is a bit of play with time in this movie that probably isn't really accurate to the story. But nevertheless, I think it works pretty well. And it has moments that made me laugh and moments that made me cry. And what else do you really want from a movie, you know? So I think that, you know, it has those things, right? I like I like the character of the sister who doesn't believe in DNA. I think that made me laugh when she says that. I don't believe in DNA. And later on, when she finds out that her birth father is a renowned guitarist, it all makes sense, right? So she's very happy about that. So she's got some of the funnier lines. So
Susan Well.
yeah.
Susan?
Oh, yes. So I missed some of the discussion about Yiddish because I got a very important phone call that I had to answer. But to get back to that, um, my my paternal grandparents always spoke Yiddish, and they really never learned to speak English. And whenever I would go with my parents to visit them in Pittsburgh, which is where they lived, my father would have to, if I talked to them, I would say something, and then my father would tell them what I said in Yiddish, and then they would speak back to me in Yiddish, and he would tell me in English what they said. But my family here were my maternal grandparents and my parents, they always used Yiddish expressions. Just they didn't speak Yiddish all the time, but unless they didn't want me to know what they were talking about, then they
Right.
would speak Yiddish to one another. But other than that, but they used expressions, Yiddish expressions, all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. So, like, I mean, I think some of this is very uh, different families are very different about this stuff. I do not remember hearing any Yiddish in my house at all. And I know my mother didn't speak it, and her parents probably could, but didn't. But she didn't hardly knew a word of Yiddish, I think.
Yeah.
So,
And
until Leo Rosten published his book, The Joys of Yiddish, and someone gave her
yes,
a copy, and that's when she started picking up a few words here and there, I think.
and I have that book and read
Yeah.
it. And when we lived in Aurora, I took a Yiddish class in our temple, and I learned quite a bit. So that when my husband and I traveled in Germany when he was on business, it was amazing what I could understand and make myself understood to the German speakers because I knew Yiddish.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've lost it since, but
Right. Yeah. It's I always remember in Leo Rosten's book the difference, his definition between a schlemiel and a schlemazel. Remember the definition? The schlemiel is the guy who brings a bucket of paint up the ladder and drops it. The schlemazel is the guy who's holding the ladder. So, what else? Any other thoughts on the film? Yes. Yeah.
Happy, cheerful. I just like the happy, cheerful dancing and the camaraderie in all the different kinds of people who had attended. And then they were just all one big happy family. The beginning of the movie really lost me. I thought this is really a waste of time.
Yeah.
It's a dumb movie. And then as it went on, I became much more interested, but I loved the ending. Where
Yeah.
everybody felt welcomed within the community.
Right. Yeah, in some ways, you have to just sort of surrender to this movie at some point, right? You start out saying, oh, I don't know, they're not the greatest actors in the world. It's not so great. And then somewhere in there, it starts to catch you. I think. So I don't even know if that means they got better at it as they went along. I mean, I feel like, the director is its first movie as a director. You don't necessarily film a movie in order, of course, in scenes, but I think maybe he got better as they were in the process of making this movie. So I think that's possible. There's a couple of lines in that scene that I like a lot. I mean, one is, um, talking about just because you're related doesn't mean you're family. Right? That was one. And then the other, which is kind of a corollary to it, you're stuck with us now, even if it is just DNA, right? So on the one hand, right, that being family is more than genetics. And on the other hand, now that we know you're a part of the family, you're stuck with us too. So everybody is accepted, right? And including the Filipino grandparents who don't say anything, I don't think, in the movie, but they're there and they're honored by the daughter when she speaks about learning about her Filipino tradition. Um, so there's that aspect of it. And yeah, it comes down to them all dancing together. And which, by the way, is a convention of these Yiddish movies. If you were to go back and watch Yiddish movies, there's always a wedding in a Yiddish movie. Not a bar mitzvah, but always a wedding. There's always a wedding scene. It doesn't matter whether it's a comedy or a drama, there's always a wedding. Right? It's a convention of the Yiddish drama. So in that sense, I don't know that the actress who wrote this is a student of Jewish film over the years, but I think she may just have absorbed it. Yeah, and the movie is framed by that, right? We talked last week about there's a framing device in A Real Pain, which is JFK Airport and all the different kinds of people who walk through JFK Airport. And at the beginning scene when Benji is sitting in the airport and he says, you meet the craziest people in the airport. And he's sitting there and he gets the title A Real Pain next to his face. And then in the final scene, he's back sitting in the airport. He says, again, you meet the craziest people here. And he sits down and it says A Real Pain next to his face. Here, the framing device is a bat mitzvah, right? And the mother's bat mitzvah 27 years ago, and her daughter's bat mitzvah 20, however many years later, right? So,
Julian has his hand.
yeah,
I had my genes analyzed by 23andMe a bunch of years ago, and it
yeah.
came back saying I was 3% Neanderthal, which that being said explains a lot.
Yeah, okay. Is that a joke? I don't even
No,
know.
it said most, I read since then that I think that Professor Harari's book that most people are 2 or 3% Neanderthal.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm 4% Neanderthal.
Oh,
there
wow.
you go. Okay,
Oh, yeah.
The Neanderthals and humans did mix a bit, but the
okay.
Neanderthals weren't as good at cooperating, I read.
Uh-huh. All right, very interesting. All right,
I am Ashkenazi.
I'm getting persuaded that maybe I have to do this. I don't know. Any other thoughts on the film?
You should talk to Arthur before you do it. He says no.
Okay,
Go and you don't get
Yeah.
control of it. And what happens when that company goes down?
Mhm. All right, maybe I won't do it. So, what are we watching next week?
I looked it up. Wait, A Life. Let's see.
This is the one with
This is it, right?
yes, One Life, One
One
Life.
Life.
Yeah, it stretches our concept of a Jewish film a little bit, but I think because the main character is not Jewish and it played by Anthony Hopkins, but I liked it. So and it fits, and I think you'll find it interesting as well. You can find it online for sure. I'm on,
It's on YouTube.
yeah, YouTube, Netflix, Amazon, right? For sure. This one has been showing a lot on cable lately, actually. I caught it on just TV one night. So if you have any of those, if you have yeah. So it's definitely on Amazon. You'll be able to find it there, if not other places. So, and I hope you like it. So we do have, what night is the talk about Mel Brooks next week?
We're, I don't have to go.
I think it's the 27th, I think. So is that a Tuesday? Today's the 20th, so that would be a week from tonight. So if you're interested in talking about the Jewishness of Mel Brooks, invite you to come to that. And earlier in the day, of course, we'll be looking at One Life. Okay. Okay. Thanks for coming in person on a cold day. Thanks for watching from home. It's good to be with you guys. We'll see you, if not sooner, then next week.
All right, bye-bye. Oh, this weekend, wait, belated announcement, this weekend is Ben Zeller in person, 12:30 Lax and Bagels, 1 o'clock. Intro to Islam. You're not gonna wanna miss it. He's a congregant, but he's a teacher, he's a professor. So whenever he does it,
Yes,
not
to
that,
unmute. Vanessa, unmute. Unmute yourself. Unmute yourself.
Oh,
You're
you're on mute.
muted.
go through rabbis.
But so I'm sorry, Vanessa was announcing this week's adult enrichment, 12:30 on Sunday for Lox and Bagels, and 1 o'clock is the presentation. Professor Ben Zeller, who is a member of Macomb and a professor at Lake Forest College, and he's teaching about the beginnings of Islam, right? Or the principles of Islam, something like that. So,
It's not soon.